Yeah, we had some section here. Thank you. This is Senate Appropriations. We're starting a little late because we were on the floor a lot longer listening in minute detail about a section by section bill.
I will have another conversation.
Yes, and so, so we have asked DCFO to come back. Can we push got it on the screen, please?
It's over there.
You can do it up there.
Yeah, you can do it.
And so, as we were going through the base budget request, a couple of questions came up. And we first was around your secure facility, and you only have 3.7 million, I believe it is, if I can find the right page. A secure residential treatment was B327. And so my question that we had, or we'd like you to tell us a bit more, exactly what B327 is. What is the status of the secure residential treatment facility, and anything else associated? And then Senator Sears and Senator Western might have other questions as you go along. So if you could brief us a bit about the appropriation and also the current status of your secure treatment facility. And perhaps this is for out-of-state placements. I have no idea, so we need help. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to try to shed some light here. For the record, my name is Chris Winters. I'm the Commissioner of the Department for Children and Families. And I have with me Megan Smeaton, who is the Director of our business office and our lead in the department for our budget, and Tyler Allen, who is the Director of Youth Services. I'm sorry, Tyler, I'm forgetting exactly your title. My apologies. And we can answer those questions for you. I'll start off just very quickly, Madam Chair, on the status of the secure facility. As you all are very well aware, we had plans for Newberry at one time, and I say we, this was before my time as commissioner, which started a year ago. Those plans were put on hold. Most recently, we've attempted a temporary secure facility. We had some plans for St. Albans. Those plans went awry as well. And now we're almost ready to open up a temporary secure crisis stabilization facility in Middlesex. And the renovations have been done there. The building is ready to go. And we are still finalizing an agreement with a provider. So we can't speak publicly about that provider or that agreement or that cost just yet. And then, as you all are aware, I'm sure, we went out to RFP for a permanent secure facility on a couple of different sites, one in South Burlington, one in Virgins. And we have not quite inked an agreement on that one either, but we are very close. We've made a selection and are working with a developer, and that's a design, lease, build, lease to own project. So there are no upfront costs with that. I do believe the 3 whatever it is, 4 to 7. I'm sorry, I forget the exact line item. For secure,
down a little bit from 3.8.
3.7 billion.
3.7 is for the services provided to the youth who are in secure treatment, and it's a mix of locations and settings for that. And I would like to turn it over to Megan Smeaton to talk a little bit more about that budget line item, what it does include, and perhaps answer your questions about what it does not include, which at this point does not include any facilities or buildings.
So if the Middlesex facility is getting close to being operationalized, where's the funding for that?
Would be coming out of the 3.4 in that 3.7 line that you're talking about for secure treatment.
Okay, all right. We'll go to Megan.
So it's building and services. It's fit up and services.
The building expenses are though, and I'll let Megan speak more specifically, but those costs have already been paid for through BGS. It was around $1 million to renovate and get that building ready to go. The buildings ready to go. The temporary trailers that are still in Middlesex.
All right. Megan, maybe you can fill in the blanks for us.
Yes, for the record, Megan Smeaton, Financial Director, DCF. So yes, so we have the 3.8 million in state fiscal year 24's budget. And that is composed of 411,000 for operating, which we pay for our hearings out of, and our ISF costs. So that includes vision and insurance and other things. And then we have 3.4 million for contracts for services.
How much again? I couldn't hear you. How much?
3.4.
2.4?
3.4. I have a spreadsheet. I don't know how to share it though on here.
It says 3.4 for grants,
Well.
but is that just for the,
But that's
part
yeah.
of the total 3.7.
Yeah, I don't.
well, but the 3.4, is that for the 4 beds? Or is that for more beds?
So that's left over from, it's what we had
Right.
used. Oh, I can share now. Okay. Share screen.
Is it the 3.4, what I'm trying to understand, is that for the 4 beds at Middlesex?
It would be used for that, correct?
Okay,
It
so
was
that's-
what we had planned for our Newbury facility originally.
Okay. Newberry was for 8 kids, I believe.
6, I think.
6, 8, what was?
Okay, so this
Oh.
is,
The history of this is are you living within this because Mike Smith, back when he closed Woodside, took what was a $6 million budget, cut it by a third, expecting to get Medicaid funding. Oh, you're gone.
Yeah, she's still there.
She's.
Oh,
You're
you're
up in the corner.
Yeah,
That's
she's
to get
sharing-
Medicaid
she's sharing-
funding.
She's gonna give us her
She's putting
spreadsheet.
something up there.
for 8 kids. And now we're 4 kids at the same.
Is that Middlesex is only 4?
Yes.
Kind of lonely.
can you see it?
Because that's what they said.
No,
No,
nothing yet.
It feels like it has frozen my computer. You can hear me though, right?
Yes, and we can see you up in the corner of the screen.
So we're almost $1 million a kid.
So, okay, is it working now?
yes,
Well, we
it's,
think so.
it's blank, it's still. We see,
There it is.
there it is.
Okay,
Can
so
you
yeah,
make it bigger?
so this is our operating and personal services. And then this is the contracted youth placements. We use this for secure facilities and high-end system of care placements, out-of-state placements. We used it when we were using Sununu for our placements.
You said.
No, the 3.4 includes,
No, that's a grant.
the grants, would be for, you said out-of-state high-end placements?
Yes, that's what we have been using that for that as well, yes.
But- I'm just trying to understand, is the 3.4 for the 4 beds at Middlesex, or is it more beds than 4 beds at Middlesex?
It could be any of the above, Senator. It will be used for Middlesex. It will be used for other secure placements. Whatever needs we have for secure placements come out of that 3.4. We don't know what the cost of Middlesex will be yet until we're done negotiating. We'll know what the per night is. There will, of course, be some base cost, whether or not those beds are empty or whether there are children in them. Our goal is not to have anyone in those beds, obviously, but we will have situations where we will have kids in those beds. And I don't know, Tyler, if you want to speak to the,
I'm gonna
use-
go back, those beds, you're talking about out-of-state beds, or are you talking about those beds as the 4 beds in Middlesex you don't want anybody in? That doesn't make sense, so I think if you could clarify that, please.
sure. Could you maybe speak to that, Tyler?
I'd be happy to speak to it. For the record, my name is Tyler Allen. I'm the Adolescent Services Director for Family Services Division, also Director of Youth Services Works. So I can speak to that. The hope is this is a secure placement and it is crisis stabilization. So we do have youth currently and at any given time that would fit the bill for that program. if we can find a community-based setting or a lower level of care that is appropriate to their need at any given time, we're always going to lean towards that. There is an 8-day hearing process. There's a lot of steps to making sure that youth that are in a secure setting belong in a secure setting. So clearly there is a need to have this available to us. But especially because it's such a small program, 4 beds is probably not enough. We're going to need high turnaround on those beds. We're going to need to be able to move kids out as quickly as possible. So until we have a more stabilized, permanent solution, I think the emphasis will be on moving kids in and out of those beds quickly. There is a chance. Oh, sorry.
I wish I understood this better. I think we're trying to figure out what this almost 3.5 million will be used for. At a minimum, we know that 4 beds, and you just talked about the need to move them out quickly. You've also said that there are going to be some kids in custody that are going to go to other programs out of state because of their extraordinary needs. So, and I assume that's a different group than you're referencing. So in other words, the 3.5 is really serving a larger population of high-end youth, some at Middlesex and some out of state. And what is the
Yes.
total estimate of youth out of state then?
At my last check, we had 90 youth in residential program. Approximately half of them were out of state. At that time, we were looking at just under 10 of them who were in a PRTF level of care. Often a PRTF level of care is secure. So those youths that we have placed in out-of-state PRTF level programs, which is closest to what we would be looking at for our kind of permanent facility, probably 3 to 4, I think presently to my knowledge.
And if it helps,
If we're at if the negotiation with the provider for the Middlesex facility, we're at 3.4 million, that's 925,000 a bed per year.
But it's more than that, they said. It's the out-of-state placement too.
Well,
Not just for those 4.
well, the out-of-state placements come out of the other place in the budget, I thought. You're certainly not housing 97 kids for 3.7 million.
No, some of it should be in family services.
Well,
So,
so when there's TBD, to be determined.
well, I think
Right.
what we're saying is the cost of the Middlesex facility is still yet to, be quantified, and we're probably talking about a budget adjustment, to support what will be the, ongoing operation of the facility in Middlesex.
I think that's possible, Madam Chair. I think that 3.4 is our estimate of the cost of secure residential, both for the 4 beds in Middlesex and for the number of secure youth placements out of state. You heard Tyler just say it's somewhere around 10 right now. That number fluctuates. We can come back. We can come back with a little more detail on how we arrived at that number and what our projections are for the coming year.
I'd
I
like to,
will add that we have spent 2.8 million of this so far this year in placements for this population.
the committee would like to know, I think the committee would find it helpful to have the number of out-of-state placements currently and your plan for FY 25 for secure placements, both out-of-state and in-state.
And I guess your
Yeah,
2.8 million
the
year to
dollars,
date
yeah.
is, for obviously out of state because we don't have the Middlesex facility or maybe a couple
That's right.
of them. Okay,
That's right. No one there in Middlesex. Yeah.
all right. Well, maybe it would be helpful if we could get something in writing, to help break it down. But I
We could
think what you're suggesting is, in the end, after Middlesex gets fully operated with 4 in-state, and then you're gonna have what you think 10, you said at that very high level, that might be out of state, that the 3.7 is total expense, probably will be higher once
Well-
Middlesex gets online.
That's the figure Smith, we've been carrying forward, isn't it?
Well, I don't know, 2.8?
Well, Smith, it was 6 million back when Woodside closed. And Smith cut the budget, he was expecting to have a program. And I believe he cut the budget by a third, saying that he was gonna get Medicare funding for the 6 million, to make up for the 2 million,
Maybe that
and he
was,
sent it elsewhere.
well, it's probably wishful thinking.
Well, it was, but we had four, but I think at the time we said it was wishful thinking, but we spent the 2 million somewhere else. And he had 4 million left, and now we're at 3.888.
Well-
Maybe it's just a coincidence.
The other thing that I remember is we did not make a facility, of site specific, but there was 4 million. At the time, we were considering
Yep.
the Newbury alternative. And that would be for the fit up costs and the security and so forth. And I think that money was being carried forward. It was
I believe it was.
in the vicinity of 4 million.
That's correct.
And I would gather probably some of that got used for the bid up of Middlesex. Or are you still carrying that?
Yes, I do believe some of that did get used, but we do still have some carry forward that we would apply to the new permanent facility.
Is it permanent?
Not Middlesex, but the one that's gone out to RFP, the design build.
Oh, okay, that in one of the other two sites, okay.
That's right.
Well, I guess we've gone down enough, haven't we? So we have 96 kids that are out of state.
But those,
But
but our
only,
particular concern is those who are in high-end
yeah, no,
security
no.
placements.
they said 10 were,
10.
10 out of the 96, but that's still a lot of kids that are having.
10 is a lot of kids.
Well, 96 is more. That are out of state, that's what I'm talking about,
I'm more concerned
about only the
with
high
the
end,
secure residential treatment.
okay.
So if you have 10 and you got 4, and we solve the problem, you're still gonna have 6 running around somewhere. That's, if we,
Well, they continue to keep them out of state.
back in the day, it used to be tougher to get a kid into Woodside than Harvard. So, I hope we're not gonna repeat that experience.
But my impression was that the 10 that are out of state now, you're probably, right, even with the 4, you would have to continue to use those out of state facilities, whether it's 10 or 8 or whatever the numbers might materialize. And so Tyler, you have your hand up, you will have a way.
I just wanted to offer a little bit of clarification that might be helpful. I think we
Well,
need to get accurate
we
and
need
new
help.
numbers. Yeah, I think we need to get accurate numbers of who is where out of state. But I will say some of those 10 youths in a PRTF program out of state are not youth with delinquency matters, so they wouldn't be placed in a secure placement within state. So I think we have to do the breakdown of which youth would have delinquency matters that may apply. And also there are youth that are currently in state who would be well served in a secure setting, but we don't have a secure setting here too. So we're going to have to try to come up with those numbers for you to help understand the lay of the land.
All right, and what would also be helpful is, I know you have 2 other sites under consideration. What is the size of the program that you have? In other words, what in the end, when they're brought online, what does that look like relative to the population? Are we still gonna, and for some regions of the state, actually, a facility, in another state may be much closer to the family, depending where it's located. So, I don't want to create the impression that, sending a child out of state is necessarily bad, because if it's just across the Connecticut River, it probably is a lot closer than Burlington.
Yeah.
So, if we could maybe get a sense of what your plan is, and maybe this has already been provided, but I don't have a sense of the number of beds you're envisioning for these other, one of these 2 potential sites, and how that looks relative to the population that, of these youth. Because they're obviously, they have to have care outside the normal foster, parent, setting.
May I speak to this, Commissioner?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
Senator Westman, you have a
I
question?
just think the follow-up to what the chair has just said is, I don't totally get the numbers of where you, but I also don't get what, the need really is.
I think these are excellent questions. So I'll start with the first questions about numbers on the permanent. We've been using the number 14. What we describe for our permanent facility, we describe it as a campus. It would be 2 distinct programs that serve, that have a common administrative building between them. And so one would be for crisis stabilization purposes, which is most closely aligned to what we're talking about in the Middlesex program temporarily. The other one would be a treatment program, which is for longer term treatment. I would envision that be a program that's somewhere along the lines of 6 months. So how we conceptualized this initially was 8 beds of crisis stabilization are available to us, 6 beds of treatment are available to us in a permanent facility. We're hopeful that that will accommodate the vast majority of the need for the state. We are being very mindful to limit our footprint as much as possible down from where Woodside was at 30 beds to smaller programs with more targeted function, because our emphasis is on community placement where possible. The purpose for all of these secure placements is if we are working with a youth who has delinquent matters, who is presenting a danger to themselves or others and needs to be held securely for the purposes of their own safety or the safety of their family or community. Those are the cases we're talking about in these treatment settings. The goal is to have that be as limited a number as possible, because we know youth outcomes are better the closer to the communities they're able to be served. If they can be served within their home, if they can be served within a kinship home, a foster placement, that would be better if that can safely happen. Right now, we don't have any secure beds. So what we're doing is putting those same youths into community-based crisis stabilization programs where they're filling out the capacity of the program, because program has to reduce census to staff a handful of youth to try and keep them as safe as possible, and stopping the entirety of the system of care. So a lot of youths don't have the need for security, so to speak, even though they might be experiencing a crisis in their personal life. So this level of care is supposed to open up the whole system of care.
Look, our memories are short and we are dealing with $2 billion. And I'm telling you, what you're telling us is really important, but we would need to have, if you could take and on one sheet of paper, just sort of summarize those component pieces of your plan ahead, what you have for population, sort of who gets served in what setting, and give us a sense of what this looks like together. Because I will tell you by tomorrow, we'll all be saying, what was that number? Or can you remember, what program did what? And it's just our ability to retain the specifics. So it would be very helpful if you could just do, not narrative, please do not give a narrative, but just give us in one page sort of the various pieces of work, the programs you're envisioning, the number of youth served, the characteristics, the duration, and that would be very helpful for us to have as reference.
Will do.
Okay,
Happy to do it.
all right. Other questions of the DCF folk? Okay. Anything else that we did not, you were in the other day on emergency housing. The Senate did pass the amendment that would deal with the form for determination of
Oh, good. Thank you.
a medical or health condition. We moved it through all remaining stages of passage, so it's now over in the House. You could not have had faster turnaround than
Wow.
what did today. So I just want to let you know that amendment went through to the bill.
Thanks for that. We appreciate the clarity there.
Okay, so unless there's something else that we want to get from the folks from DCF right now, thank you very much for being available.
Thank you. My power came on 5 minutes before I jumped on, so I don't know how you all are still going.
We've had power off and on here all day, and it's getting very heavy, and I don't know. Still snowing. And it's still
It's
snowing.
not getting better until about 8 o'clock.
Sorry. All right, well, we'll let you get back to your work then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Well,
So you you are, well, I don't know if you want to stay on it.
I guess we're gonna have to figure out where we wanna go, relative to where we have been. We didn't get all the way through where we
sounded
are.
more like a, yeah.
So I
Take a road
think,
trip.
I think we need to finish up on the, web report. That's what we were doing.
Where we're going through.
We were on labor on page 44.
Thank you. I knew that.
Somebody knew where we were going. That's fine.
So we're on labor.
Labor.
Labor. All right, so we're on page 44 of 88. It starts down at the bottom. I think this is really, if you look, this is so much, federal funds, although the level of a general fund that we're now putting into what used to be a predominantly, but a lot of it is, our UI system that now is, having to have state support, so, the governors recommend, House did not change it, so I'm gonna move on unless somebody's got a specific comment with that.
Yeah, where are we getting from?
We're on page 45. The governance recommends 54.872 million.
Where is his computer system?
That is already, we appropriated $30 million, I believe, and it's set aside for the Department of Labor. Is that right? Last year with ARP, not necessarily ARP, but state dollars. Emily, do you remember? I think we have set that, we have funded that $30 million to keep my mind.
I only asked because I had a rash
Check my
this
numbers.
winter
Yeah.
of people that can't get through the system. And they've had a really hard time, and it all centers around their IT system.
Well, we know that. So, well, look, but I believe that that was one of the IT projects that we funded. And it's underway, but it's gonna take time.
Yeah, I know that.
So yes, no one is saying that there isn't a need for that. And I do think that this is an example where the money, to do it has been reserved. Yeah. But to replace a major system like that, it's gonna be a multi-year process.
Yep.
General education. The only, and I don't know where this would go. But we do have two, requests, and we're gonna have to come back to them. And that are education related. One is the CTE director to try to get more in terms of career and technical education and some leadership there. And the other was the literacy, because believe it or not, they've rediscovered that sounding out words in phonics is more effective than
No,
guessing.
you finally,
Yeah.
they did that.
So the House removed the CTE position. We have it on hold. I have it on my list. I think everybody was saying, as we're trying to get into our major resource.
More
So you would
LPNs.
disagree with that?
Get more
I think our committee and our view is if we can fund it, that was a position that we should fund. A lot of our kids learn better through applied learning, and that's really what CTE is all about.
CTE.
So I just wanna say, I don't wanna agree with the House at this point, and we would see if we can provide the funding to go for that purpose. Now, the other question is the literacy position, would that go in the same, section? It's kind of
It may go in the next one,
special ed,
not special ed.
state play.
Oh, no, it would go in the same one.
Oh, adult educate, no,
It would go in 501.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You used to work there, didn't you?
I know, I had 500 and 501.
Oh.
So yes, 501.
So I just want to put a note for that, that those were two that we had stripped out the appropriation. And I don't know what the price tag was in the literacy bill for that position.
Was it reading assistant intervention? Is that the name of the bill?
Yeah,
150.
well, why does CTE only cost 100 and they want 150?
This, I don't know. It converted limited service position.
No, this is new. This is a conversion.
The governor only had 100 in,
I know.
so.
But I guess the question is there a difference between the two positions? If we're going to consider them, then we need to know the cost that goes with each of them. I don't know if they'd be classified differently, based on, you know, what you need for professional requirements.
Credentials.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll keep this open, pending our, review. 502 is in formula grants. Look at that.
So,
Amazing.
I'm sure Boston, Massachusetts one. Oh, what are you thinking? Stay for dinner or head home? What do you think?
At home,
Huh?
Head home.
at home. Stay for dinner. And you drive at night.
Well, it's my chauffeur who's.
Oh, your chauffeur. Oh,
My
my God.
chauffeur is emailing.
Ask him if he's treating.
Oh, they're done.
no, she's coming to our house for dinner if she stays. If not, you know, and
What is the forecast? Is it gonna continue like this till
Continues till
8?
about 8 o'clock,
But then it's
according to,
off and on, it's supposed to snow all night.
yeah, but
Yeah.
the heavy stuff in.
I'm thinking it would be prudent to head home while it's still daylight.
go home.
Okay.
I think that's probably a good
All right.
idea.
At 3 o'clock, I will text him back and say, my committee advises me that I should get home before dark.
Before 3:30.
Before 3:30. All right, state play students, I'm gonna special ed formulas that House made no changes, I'm sure. That's a big jump. Isn't it? Governors recommend almost 35 million? 35 million? That must be based on what, proposed budgets? Where would that come from, Emily?
Sorry, was it?
Formula grants, this is special education went from
Oh,
29, is it the impact of waiting? No, that's not,
I-
that's special ed is
just-
separate.
That's just the projected increased cost. of special ed.
$35 million. Okay, I believe so.
And this was under the formula grants, which was supposed to help us reduce education spend.
Well, this is special ed, and those awaiting grants are not part of
No.
special ed.
The formula grants, we changed to a formula program instead of,
Oh, yeah,
It-
right,
that's-
oh, yeah, like, yeah.
this was supposed to help us control the spending, especially.
Well, thank you for pointing that out.
Oh,
My-
yeah, Brownie.
I suppose what they could say is, well, without that, it would have been 60 million.
Right.
That's still a bit, what percentage increase is that? Could you calculate that out?
39.
35 million against, huh?
Against what?
229, would be
129.
10% of 339.
Yeah, I can do that.
Less than 10%, how about that?
Less than 10%. It's still pretty significant. State play students, I'm gonna move right along.
15%.
What?
15.
That's 50.
15%? Oh, wow. Hmm. Okay. And this, adult education and literacy, I'm real, I gather, is this your section, who does state,
It's not, but
Education.
okay,
it's Phillips.
could
But
you?
I've been dealing with this and I would have had more information. Mark Mahaly put together the proposal and they used the study that was done in the report that came and they have a whole construct. I was supposed to meet with Mark at 7:30 this morning and he got stuck in his yard. So
Oh, that's,
I need to we need.
all right, we'll hold on that because some of the testimony that we had is all they needed was the money to get to the end of the year. They were changing the assessment and that would move the money in.
That this is partly, the whole construct they created. As I understand from a high level, and this is not having done in with Mark and is that what they're hoping is, a 60-40 split between, general fund dollars and education fund dollars. And they developed a whole construct with some language to do that. I just need to understand this better to have a PMS.
I guess. Okay, I don't know how the 281 was derived.
Yeah.
And is that net of the additional advantage of, because that would be reflected in the governor's recommend. So if the assessment, but what it is all general fund, there's no split. So on this, my question is,
Somewhere
if the
in here-
assessment was going to make more students qualify for payment under the ed fund, why is this all general fund increase? And is there, so that's what I'm struggling with, because we were told that they were changing their assessment, that it was very difficult for the people who really needed the program the most. They couldn't pass the test to get in, which is indicative that they really needed the service. So, I just don't know where the 281, obviously it can't be net of assessment because they aren't, there's no ed fund reflected, or would the ed fund be in flexible pathways? That's all I'm asking.
I will.
Well, it looks like adult ed and secondary credential program is 618.
Ed fund,
So is it 618 and the 281
I think that's
gave a
right.
million?
Yep.
And so the system really needed $1 million in total.
Right, well,
Oh.
and, because we put one-time money in.
I know we did, it was $1.5 million.
$1.5
Oh,
million.
now it's only down to 281. I guess we should be happy, general fund. Okay, all right. Well, I think that must be your split there,
I will-
281
right,
versus the
And,
618.
and I will have better answers for
Yeah.
you.
So that would be the 60-40, 60% ed fund, 40% general.
Yep.
All right. I'm not opposed to it, I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yep.
But I think we've just figured it out. So we can hold and you can just confirm if we understand the interplay correctly between 504 and 504.1 flexible pathways.
Yes.
But it looks to me like that's your 60-40 split,
Mhm.
618 and 281. And these section 6. What's the note? These will go up, section 6 of 874 for community schools.
This is the, it's in the community schools bill. Or the miscellaneous, maybe it's in a miscellaneous ed bill that's coming out of the House. It's the, you talked about is the BOCES program, so creating a community school, so schools can work together on,
Well, I understand that.
so, yeah.
I understand that, but they've said they've reduced education fund by $1 million. And then and so they took $1 million out, and then they added 618 back. So I don't know, what was the $1 million? Was that originally, it's not in the governor's request? So what's the $1 million reference in your note?
Well, the house change is 381, 275 total.
Well, the million on what they changed.
No, I don't know what they're doing with $1 million. It seems to me what they're doing is saying they need $1 million to support the program. We're splitting it 60-40, 60% ed fund through flexible pathways, 40% general fund, because those don't qualify for a total of $1 million. So why the house took out $1 million, I'm not sure what that relates to. That's my only question.
We'll find out.
Okay, adjusted education program, my gosh, how big is the 1.9 billion? Because made no change.
Well, that's certainly not an empty vessel.
What?
That's certainly not an empty vessel. 1.9 billion.
That one will likely be updated, by actions of this committee.
How did
so
they-
you know what the budgets are.
That was based on estimates in December. That's what that is.
1.7 million was?
No.
No.
For the 1.9.
That's
$1.9.
$200 million increase. in
And they left it alone.
Well, because right now the budgets haven't all been approved.
I thought it was constantly.
What are we doing about this mess?
Well,
Yeah.
the Ways
Yeah,
and Means Committee is working on, ed financing and a better way of connecting local decision votes, but,
Oh, they've already voted on 132 billion.
I know, I think they're talking about maybe it's coming in total increase about 240. I don't know, something in that
Oh
vicinity.
my God.
The normal growth is about 75 million year over year,
Yeah,
and now this is a big,
well, I mean, if they would just focus on this. I could probably support something, but I can't support 132 billion plus another. Oh my God,
well, you're not deciding, the local voters are deciding.
I realize that, but we've got to help out the local voters.
Well, that's
I mean,
what,
the local property taxpayers who are getting stuck with the bill. They ain't gonna be happy come November, I can tell you.
well, they need to
Or whatever.
remember the
Property
school
tax.
boards are recommending the budgets and they're voting them, so.
Yeah, it's their own
that's-
people that are.
But
spending.
unfortunately, we have to set the rate to generate the revenues that they wish to spend, and somehow it becomes our problem.
Well, I'm reading the Dear Jane letter.
Yeah.
Clearly, it's an empty vessel according to.
He didn't sign it, did he, in an affectionate way, did he?
It's like.
Not really, no, I mean, it's not.
It didn't come with a
Yours
kiss.
and
But I thought, with cargo running all over the place. You got a point, but 132 million in new taxes that aren't in the budget. With spending to go along with it, and then you haven't even touched the property tax problem. So if they're gonna do that in addition,
Who is the House? Don't forget, we're the Senate.
I kind of realize that we're the Senate, but I mean, we're taking the people. In the communities don't necessarily distinguish between the House and the Senate.
No, you're right. No, they don't.
Yeah.
It's
so-
all people involved.
Those people, like Bobby Starr.
People, what hell? It
It's a,
doesn't matter much, they vote it right
I
through.
mean, the governor, is usually,
We need an education comment.
although she did sign it, Kristen Closer, sincerely. Governor didn't sign it, Adam didn't sign
they didn't even copy one, did they?
Money in ads.
it.
So, all I can say is
They
the
copied
increase,
Diane, Phil, Jill, Catherine, Emily, Amy, and Adam. Adam got a copy.
oh,
Phil did, Phil spilled the roof, not Phil Scott.
Oh, you got it.
Oh,
so I want to get back to the budget. As painful as it is, Ways and Means is working on a bill that would begin to address education financing and what could be the parameters or fair policy triggers to really start looking at the growth in costs, because 24% in a area of spending that it's almost the equivalent of general fund. So we're supporting all the rest of state government and governmental services at about the same amount. So that was brought up by the governor in his message. So the House is taking the lead. There's been some discussion, obviously, between the House and the Senate in terms of how policies might be able to be implemented so that we can start getting a better way of controlling the growth in the cost of our K through 12 system. And it's a challenge because past efforts have not been terribly successful in terms of, the consolidation or whatever. So all I can say is the plan is, and Phil, you can add to what I'm saying, is that they're working on a bill right now to do exactly that. And what would be those provisions in terms of allowing growth rates or excess spending penalties, but to better connect higher spending with, if you make that decision, then how you understand the cost impact. And for me, school boards have to play the same role in challenging and looking at how money is spent in the same way we are charged to do it for all of state government. And how can we put in statute those mechanisms that really force decisions? And we see this here because our own policy committees are sending us bills with wish lists, and you can justify every single
Looking at you.
I
request.
haven't sent any wish list.
No, but I'm talking about 15 million here, 40 million here, et
30
cetera.
million there.
And you can say we need it, people would benefit from it, but we're gonna say, no, that's not sustainable, or that's not as far as we can go. So to me, this is the challenge ahead of us, is what we put in that bill and how we put some parameters around those spending decisions, or better connect the more you spend. Because if you look at poor Ann Cummings, she is so worried about people, you know, the cost of their property taxes. And she lives here in the city of Montpelier. But she's and really, it should be, the school board should be just as concerned about what is happening to their property taxpayers as the legislator happens to live in that
There
community.
should be more.
I don't see it, because there's no, can't get people to run for school board, at least in my area. It's hard.
They all
It's
want to
very-
run for
very
the
few.
elections.
And the people who do usually have one issue that they're worked up about. They get in, they try to address that, and then they lose interest and they leave after. the meeting.
No, it's a very difficult job, and it really requires,
I found being on the local school board, my first 5 years here, 6.
Yeah.
I did a lot better from my people being on the local school board than I ever did here in Montpelier. You control, back then, we controlled our own destiny and our spending and.
well, that was before the Brigham
That was
decision.
before the Brigham decision.
So,
So you still control to a certain extent.
Economic development.
So,
But
so I'm
figured
just,
out the militant
what I'm
was
saying
taking
is-
advantage of it.
505 right now is subject to revision. We still have more budgets yet to be passed.
so when is the plan to get this out? Our budget?
That the vessels.
I would like to do it if we could finish up. I don't know, might be optimistic, but I think we should try to aim for the end of next week. We've got all the information. I don't see if decisions are gonna
The
get any
only-
easier.
the
Are
only
you
thing
gonna
I,
wait for the cargo that's floating around? I'm using your terms.
All
Empty
the
vessel.
extras.
The empty vessels to come through?
We are gonna put everything into the appropriations bill.
Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna be voting on 132 million new taxes.
And those,
If I do, it's no.
and those bills that are carrying that are going to the committees of jurisdiction. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, in some cases, they can stay there because they're non-starters with,
What we've said right along.
right.
We're gonna have to determine here, and you're waiting for me to tell you exactly how we're gonna move things around. And then we will do what we normally do, and that is, the chairs will have a discussion, and we will say, it's very obvious that if we're gonna do something for those programs and services that were level funded by the governor, it's gonna take some revenue. But, that's what we do in the budget process, and then we would go to finance and say, this is what we would use, these are our priorities. So ultimately, everything will be appropriated at whatever level, and obviously that we feel is sustainable and that we feel is defensible. And so we're not gonna have parallel bills, you know, in a separate appropriations process. It'll all come in here and we'll have to prioritize against this. And so what has happened, and I've said this before, is the governor's budget underfunded or level funded some very key areas. Our justice system is certainly an example where more resources are necessary. And we know that our community-based organizations are suffering and experience the same pressures as state government in terms of cost of health insurance, wage challenges and so forth. So we will ultimately weigh it all out and it will be here, and it will be with a consolidated tax bill. I would imagine coming out of finance at a level of revenues that we need to support the budget. That's how we always do it, and I think it is, I don't know, respectful of the whole appropriations process. And this committee, as uncomfortable as it is, having to make the decisions out of the myriad of, ways that money could be spent, what will be our priorities? And so that's how we always have done
So
it.
I'm just, I totally agree with that. What I would say about this number is, this number came from, from December. That the governor has in, for, education payment.
And that was estimated at 204 million. And in December, I believe it was a
And-
little more than 200 million.
Mount
Increase.
Mansfield voted on the second, South Burlington's supposed to be voting today. Essex will vote the beginning of next week. It would be interesting to see
CBU is a
the
district, the
16th.
16th.
But they must have new revised numbers. And by the middle of next week, they must have a new revised number for this. So
Yeah, they
it
will.
would be interesting to see where they're, because I know they cut at least 5 million out of Mount Mansfield Union's vote. And I know South Burlington, this is a revote. So
Yep.
I don't know where that number is, but I think it would be helpful for us to see what direction that's heading.
But that won't impact all the other stuff that we're doing.
No, I'm not saying it will, but I think it would be,
Somehow.
the only way I would say this number affects that is in the backdrop of everything else. When we're trying to raise money, when the property taxes are going up double digit, the further down that gets, the easier everything else is.
But somehow, if we don't hook
I
local
just-
spending to their local tax rate,
Well,
we're in a loss.
but you still have the difficulty of the Brigham decision and working off a state. But my question is to the committee, should we, I have to let Scott know, they're finished up for the day. Should we try to finish at 3:30?
Sure.
I think we could finish now. I mean,
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
whenever you want.
You wanna get through the education section?
I really would, so,
Okay.
maybe it won't take very long.
No.
I'll just say ready in about 15 then.
It's not. It's not too much.
Yeah. That's what you asked.
Okay, sorry for the interruption, but.
All right,
So,
Transportation went down.
education, great.
all right.
That's
So,
if they can't hire bus drivers.
what is? The transportation went down, all right. Okay, house merger grants. And no change there.
What a merger.
Well, they used to be small school grants.
Yeah.
When we did Act 46, we
No.
renamed.
Renamed them, rose by another name.
But now it's pretty misleading.
They
They made-
merged.
Either they made a decision or they were forcibly merged a number of years ago and we're still getting them.
Yeah, the payments, the incentives for doing. Nutrition,
That's
that's
is that thing that pays for food?
Universal meals.
University made
Yeah.
2.5 million less.
Yeah, that take up rate.
It's all it's costing me.
It's still costing 26.5 million rather than the 30 originally thought.
Yeah,
Down
but
to 24.
Now we're down.
are people still getting this that don't need it?
Sure, it's universal.
Well, that's,
Plus the numbers went up by 30.
so there's no incentive to get people that don't need the money to.
How do you determine?
That's why the churches are having to do backpack programs for the kids that can't have any food at night.
Right. And that's what's,
But this is defeat.
I know.
You want some
I know.
to the ones that are already paying.
no, I'm just saying that people that aren't eligible for the federal money
They're all.
You mean you don't wanna pay for my son to have a free meal?
No,
Oh, all right.
if he were in his, at that age, yes.
Even though I
No, we used to
pay
take out from Marty's.
pretty big percentage of the town taxes, my kid can't eat for free. That's not very.
I'm not relitigating a bill that we
Okay.
passed last year, we're adjusting it down, but
Pay all
it's
the
still
bills
expensive.
anyway.
It's 26.5 million, which is,
Everything.
2.6 cents on your property
I
tax,
think
right
it's a
there.
success.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Instead of 29, it's 26, fully a success story.
24. it sounds-
24 plus a 30% increase in meals.
Seems like
Well,
free
well,
litigation.
I
all
would
the
hope for
farmers got
26
money.
or 24 million, we would get an increase in meals.
Right, if it's free. you
If it's
can-
free, 24 million ought to get you a few more meals.
Keep your welfare program,
Yeah.
Bobby.
We were paying 26, 27.
Don't you ever complain about welfare again. It's
We
Yeah.
your
put the
welfare.
pre-K,
No, this is corporate welfare. I think
Yeah,
Cisco
you're
is,
giving money,
I think
you're
Cisco
giving
is
money to
behind
kids
this.
that don't need them.
they're the one that did, corporate welfare a few minutes ago upstairs.
I'm gonna keep going. I need to hit the road before it gets dark. After school program, that is the
Okay.
cannabis money. We're closing that out.
Closed.
And
Can we put language in there that it will not be for primary prevention?
they're already, after school can't be for primary
It
prevention?
should be.
Of course it is.
Well, I don't think it is. I think
This
it
is
has
only
to
the
be
appro-
structured to keep kids from becoming
Can I
addicted
suggest we
to
not put
nicotine?
in any language about the
Okay.
after school program?
I agree.
I think we're.
Thank you.
I
Head
think
down,
we'll close that one
head
out.
down.
I-
Next year we'll
I think
entertain
I think the
you, but head
literature
down.
around the intent on those programs
Yes,
and the work that's been done is pretty explicit around.
I'm totally,
Technical education, I'm good.
All right, check ed.
Your amendment next year will.
State Board of Ed, reduce it by 54.
Oh.
54,000.
Well, leave them at 26.
What one do you
Oh,
want?
they want.
You
State
had
Board
that,
of
Board of
Title 11.
Education.
It's not a
Board of
fan, state
Education.
board.
Why don't we just do what we did to that other board?
Technical
Well, we
education.
did take their rulemaking away for,
Yeah, we did for CTE. CTE
And
is
we
moved
take
from
their
the board.
rulemaking away.
Well, I mean-
That's not for us to decide.
We
That's
did
a
about-
policy.
what, a third of what they.
Well, Senator Campion would oppose it.
Yeah, if you talk to them.
Actually, Representative Odie has started to make the argument we should go the other way and go back to the state board doing all policy instead of AOE. Which doesn't make any sense to me, but
Well,
in other words, I can't say that we're gonna make any changes this year.
So I'm gonna keep going because I'm working against my 15 minutes
I'm
here.
voting against 511 point.
retired teachers' pension.
Yes, and that is part of the agreement, so we have to,
Yeah, do that.
teachers' retirement.
Yep. Okay.
Retirement for non-negotiable payments. A contract made is like a promise made, it's a debt unpaid, and we're paying. Same thing for, this is, this is the auditor's cost, and the,
I
treasurer.
wonder why we're paying on the general fund.
That was part of the agreement, the
I
old,
know,
I mean,
general fund gets hit for
I
Look
know,
at 550.
education
Look at
expenses,
550.
and they don't even say thank you very much.
this is the pre-funding and the pay-go both,
Yeah, no,
so.
but over, we're gonna approve it, I should. Just as troubling that we don't even recognize that as an education.
Actually, Representative Beck is thinking that the school budget's not that it would cost anymore, but should actually make that transparent, the cost of the retirement benefits
Yeah.
for
I agree with
active
Representative
teachers.
Beck.
2.3
So,
and you get to the end.
So I'm going to suggest we take, the afternoon, end it and higher education. And, we'll finish going through this tomorrow. And let me ask, are there other areas where we want to arrange for testimony? I wanted to have, mental health come in under that. They were not asking for it. It's a new program and we really, want to understand what it is. And
We did want to hear about Middlesex.
we did,
heard that.
we did get that for you coming in.
I thought it was all that clear.
No, they're gonna give us a one-page summary because in their efforts to clarify,
We got a couple of.
we struggled.
I would also love to know what the actual state of play is now on the
On the
water area. Because we had,
bottom.
well, but we have competing, we've heard competing plans for how it's gonna be used.
Is this your $1 million?
That.
For the loggers?
All that we needed for the loggers. Jane got one.
Yeah. The question we're having,
Right, is what they
Bobby,
have.
is do we want to create the B gap equivalent for our logging industry? And do grants, because the argument has been that they can't get out into, because of the weather. The way the House put the language in, it appears as though they're starting a new program that equates to water quality and so forth. And so we are not sure if our intent is to provide some financial relief.
This would be a one-time, one-shot deal to help them the past couple of years and.
Well, did you read this?
No, those are the reasons why they need help.
Well, but this also
No,
references
this is
the-
going on to this other program.
No, I think this letter was written maybe during the House negotiations.
Just as a pilot program.
This,
Yeah,
But,
this is what the House put in and it's tied into water quality.
certification.
And it
yeah,
will help create a pilot program with one-time funding that will
Professional benefits.
Yeah.
durable
So
water
why-
quality.
Why,
Why do we, if you wanna give relief to them, then let's just give relief,
Yeah.
but this is starting a new program.
yeah, we don't want it.
So, well,
One time.
and,
I just told them we wanted to hear why they, or what they presented to the House to get that.
no, it's,
moved forward.
it reduces the initial cost of becoming master logger certified.
that's what they wanted. That's not what the House, actually, I don't think the House did all this.
the House did that $1 million.
Just $1 million for
For
the
the
water
roads
quality,
and that stuff.
A&R.
But
But
we'll,
they, but the way they described it was a water
Yeah,
quality.
yeah, no, I agree. You know, it's like this skid bridges and.
Yeah, so,
Did we ever get? Were we gonna ask them for?
we do have skid bridges and they actually can.
No, I
come
just wondered if
around.
we had asked to get more information from A&R. Did we, were we gonna send an email to them or? But we haven't heard that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, the question that I have for you, Bobby, is, my impression was that what they asked for and what they came in and testified was that they did not qualify the way BCAP was, and to provide, relief that was climate related. And they were asking for $1 million to help them with their economic,
Loss.
financial situation. And so, which is
That's the second one.
Yeah.
which is the second. So I think to throw in all this other stuff
No.
is,
This is just to give the committee an idea of how they, what they sold it on over in the House to some extent. I certainly don't want to set up any permanent programs.
well, this is,
This is to help them out of the mess they're in right now and hopefully.
well, this is a create a pilot program with one-time funding at Forest Parks Recreation, provide a share support for professional logging,
I think,
durable water quality, ecosystem protection.
We already have that.
So,
I think we're gonna have this conversation when we get to that line item
Yeah.
of the $1 million and we'll have it again. You did ask about, mental health, in that piece. I would like to know if the money is still sitting there for those public and e-grids. And if it, from their understanding, the, only problem is that Howard and my mental health agency couldn't find people to do the work. And where they are around it, because my mental health agency said the money tried. We're gonna have
There's
conversation about
there's
this when we
supposed
get
to
to
be
natural
a-
resources.
no, it's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot clearer if you just want to create a B gap equivalent and let it go at that. This idea of,
You need to get your code on.
That's not.
so,
That's all that I care about doing, and it's,
well, that's on your wish list, and I will have to have some more discussion, probably in the,
Your ride's gonna be here in about 4 minutes.
It is, I am.
I'm so worried about.
Call the program Tree Gap.
so committee,
I'm
what is
more
B gap?
worried about her and we're
Business
gonna
grant.
have this conversation.
So
Yeah.
committee, we're still live, we have not officially adjourned, to let you know. So I'm going to suggest we officially adjourn. Some of us looking at the weather are going to try to depart and get home safely. And I'm gonna go off live, Hannah, if you would please do